York, then I'll be the first one to say that it's already starting to feel like the Browns and Giants will be picking early once again come the next NFL draft. I'm Zach Gelb.
For more than half a century, contractors and trade professionals have relied on WeatherGuard for heavy-duty truck and van storage equipment, not just to protect their tools, but to protect their professional reputations. Whether it's inside or outside of work vehicles, a WeatherGuard badge means pros can trust that their hard-earned name is in good hands. Since 1968 and every day since, WeatherGuard has been protecting anything it takes to build a professional reputation. WeatherGuard, established in 1968, proven every day. WeatherGuard.com.
Are you a parent of a 2 to 8-year-old? Listen closely for an exciting offer, then head to abcmouse.com/radio to learn more. By now, you've probably heard of ABC Mouse.
ABC Mouse is like a little one-on-one teacher. It has helped her so much.
We're offering a promo at abcmouse.com/radio to try it for free for a month, then $14.99 per month until canceled. Go to abcmouse.com/radio to see this offer. That's abcmouse.com/radio. Actual ABC Mouse users compensate for their
Guests are great, except unwanted guests. At Specialty Exterminating, we know the difference. Hi, I'm Sabrina Kennan with Specialty Exterminating. We help you keep unwanted pests out of your home. Now we can keep those reptiles away. Our new reptile repellent is the perfect add-on for your pest prevention service. It's pet and people safe, so it's perfect for any homeowner, especially pool owners and homes in wooded and rural areas. Call us so we can repel the reptiles. Specialty Exterminating, your pest prevention partner since 1979.
Hey y'all, Eli Winters here. I want to talk to you about something that's more important than ever, taking care of the wildlife around us. Our planet is home to some of the most amazing creatures you could ever imagine, from the biggest bears to the smallest birds and everything in between. But here's the truth. Many of these animals are in danger, habitats are disappearing, and we're losing species at a rate we've never seen before. If we want our kids and their kids to experience the magic of wildlife that we have today, it's on us to step it up and take action. You can make a difference. Learn more about wildlife conservation in your area and how you can help, whether it's supporting local wildlife refuges, reducing pollution, or simply taking a little time to appreciate the wild beauty around you. It all counts. This is Eli Winters. Let's make sure our wildlife is around for generations to come. Y'all take care of the earth and it'll take care of us. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
So a lot of times when players enter the transfer portal, it could be along the lines of our guy, Kurt from Good Burger.
Pick up the trash.
Yes, R.I.P. to the actor who played that. I didn't even know the guy passed away, but apparently he did. But there are times when players enter the transfer portal, and it's more than just...
Pick up the trash.
It's actually a real, oh my goodness, this guy's departing. And I would put Owen Aquino in that category for the Liberty Flames as he exited yesterday. And it's different at Virginia and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech seems like they've kept everybody they want to keep. A lot of the guys who've entered the portal, 7 of them, are by and large players they believe they can upgrade upon. And let's keep it real here, sub 500 overall and sub 500 in the ACC, you can do that. Virginia, it's a total roster retooling. Even though one of those key players, the best you could say of the Virginia roster in the portal, is gone, more on that in the Fast Five at 5-ish. The reality is there has to be a rethinking of things there. Liberty, it's different, but it doesn't mean that necessarily the overall thought process is not a bad one for the Flames. Now, statistically, Owen Aquino entering the transfer portal yesterday as he joins Curtis Blair, Bryson Spell, Kai Yu, and Will Gibson. So 5 players from Liberty have departed. 4 of them, Richie McKay would hate me saying this, but to the average fan, they would give it the Kurt treatment.
Pick up the trash.
From our beloved character from Good Burger. But Owen Aquino is one that more falls under this.
Well, I should have known.
Because some point you're going to lose players that are talented enough. And the stat sheet is not necessarily what jumps out for Owen Aquino. 8.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block per game. He shot 58% from the field. It's the fact that this is a guy that can, by and large, fill a pretty viable role. And other players and other programs are going to have rosters where they can slot that type of player in and pay more money to keep someone like that around than the Flames can. We got the news last week. The core of their players that are coming back, Zach Cleveland, Colin Porter, and Caden Matheny. And not that any of those guys was exactly going to be a hot commodity in the transfer portal, but I think if you're a Flames fan, that's where that makes sense. And that's why that side of roster construction is big. Let's keep it real. Liberty, LU, they've got a lot of money, but they don't have the type of money that at LU that you would find at LSU or U of L, not University of Lynchburg, but University of Louisville. Again, more on them. Fast 5 at 5-ish today if you're connecting the dots for UVA fans out there. But for Liberty, you have to prioritize players. You've got a core that comes back. And they may not be the most athletic players out there. Zach Cleveland certainly is. And he's a glue guy and a chemistry guy. And nothing against Owen Aquino, but when you talk about players that routinely were made available to the media, and granted, Aquino is a Spain player. He's from Madrid originally. And, sorry to East Florida State Community College or East Florida State College or whatever they are, but I venture to say there's not the media attention there that you'll find even in our backyard at the University of Lynchburg, or in particular, in this case, Liberty University. But, he wasn't a focal point player. So he's the type of guy you'd love to have around. Clearly had a role this past year. You have 8 points, 8.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block a game. Means you're a skilled, well-rounded player, and Aquino showed he could do that. But there are going to be guys like this in your program where you've got to identify that when you're prioritizing your pecking order, they're not going to stick around. And then, of course, the obvious one for the Flames, and there's no word out about whether this will actually transpire and materialize. But if you're talking about resource allocation, which is, pretty much the reality of this, there's a resource allocation component to this for every program, Liberty included. You've got your core three that are back, and the fourth one that you would prioritize in that, if you believe there's a chance he could stick around, with all due respect to Owen Aquino, but it's Talon Peter. Okay, I get it. Sixth man off the bench. I get it. He wasn't in discussion for Conference USA Player of the Year. Jaron Pierre of Jacksonville State won that award. And he wasn't even on first team All-CUSA because he didn't start, which is ridiculous, but hey, not that he came off the bench. I think the role was fine. It fit for Liberty. It got them a Conference USA regular season and tournament championship. I'm talking about the fact that because he came off the bench, he can't be on first team. I mean, let's get the antiquated thinking out of our way. Please be better than baseball or, God help us all, NBA award voters, which is the dumbest legion, the most absurd legion of voters that are out there. And maybe I'm off my high horse and I'm not hip enough. Philip, you're just out of college. You played for Liberty. But my beef with NBA voters extends to this thinking in Conference USA basketball to Talon Peter, which is, big picture, if you're prioritizing for Liberty, it's Peter over Aquino. And not that Richie McKay thinks one's a more valuable person. We're talking about value from a player. But we're talking about the awards. And yes, time to take a detour.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
But the lack of outside-the-box thinking, or just dumb thinking that goes on in these awards market, oh my goodness, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's at least, you can name at least one or two every single year when it comes to NBA voting. You want somebody in the All-Star game or somebody receiving most improved or like an award like that. And you always have one or two up there that you assume is going to get the nomination. Nope, it's going to go totally opposite. You might think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to get the MVP and it's going to end up being like Marcus Smart. Like, of course that would never happen, but that's just the outcome you tend to see every single year.
But you get all those. I mean, look, I'm a Sixers fan and I'm not your optimistic they should get more love. I'm your pessimistic. First of all, again, we're taking a little bit of a detour. I totally disagree about bad luck for Joel Embiid. No. This is a guy who's had chronic weight problems, is a tall individual, and has never conditioned himself to take conditioning seriously so that he can avoid all of these soft tissue, muscle pull and tear injuries, other things that have popped up. You can't avoid injuries if you take your nutrition and conditioning seriously. And by all accounts, Mr. I prefer to drink Shirley Temples over anything else, Joel Embiid, does not fit that category. So no, sorry to Trey on the morning warm-up. If you missed it, go back and listen wherever you listen to podcasts. But that's the most asinine argument. I love Trey to death, but it's the type of argument that the media people out there will make because they've never played sports, and therefore he just has had bad luck. No. If you condition yourself, and you could probably say this, Philip, as a former athlete yourself, Ty is in the background. He could nod or shake his head either way. But if you're an athlete, your job is to condition yourself. And if you're taking care of yourself from a strength and conditioning, recovery standpoint, wait for it, nutrition, and wait for it, when you're a multi-million-dollar, 9 figures value commodity, you have the financial resources, or as Kenny Powers would like to say,
dollar bills, y'all.
And so if you sit there and don't take it seriously, or you get these NBA voters, I will give them the rejected treatment because it's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, when it comes to athletes and their conditioning, a lot of times you see when athletes take the next step to the professional level, they're given more freedom. They're not in that conditioning program they were once in college. We can see this a lot, and a lot of times they let go and fall short of what they should have been like in college. We can see that a lot with players like Eddie Lacy, Trent Richardson, perhaps even Leonard Fournette in the middle part of his career, even though he's a great player. But Joel Embiid, I could almost agree with Trey. The early part of his career, especially at Kansas, was plagued by injury. But at this point in his career, he should be taking care of himself and recognize the issues that need to be answered. And it kind of sucks that all we know, the two biggest moments of his career is going to be winning the Olympics, helping the U.S. win the Olympics, and getting sent home by Kawhi Leonard in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
Oh, but he cried afterwards. He was so sorry that he did nothing in the offseason to take care of himself so he could be better the next year. Like a true competitor, when you suffer heartbreak, which is, and I mean, look, I'm not the best athlete, but relative to my low standards athletically compared to other runners and tennis players, when I lose, I'm looking at what can I do better? Not Joel Embiid, who's worth a lot more, and God gave him a lot more athletically than he gave me, but he's not putting it to use. Anyway, we get back on track because the absurd awards voters in the NBA are some of the same type of people that are the absurd award voters who don't understand the value of Talon Peter to Liberty University. And the fact that Peter, while he was the sixth man off the bench, was one of the best scorers in Conference USA. If you want to give Jaron Pierre Jr. that, I'm fine with that. If you want to give the two guys from Kennesaw State, by the way, both of them are there in the transfer portal, I can understand that. But when you're talking about top 5 players in Conference USA, Peter is there. And so when you get back to the point about Owen Aquino, who entered the transfer portal after a year at Liberty, 2 years at East Florida State College, and has 1 year of eligibility remaining, he has value to a college basketball team. I don't think he's the type of guy that Duke, Houston, Florida, or Auburn are going to be beating down the door to obtain his services. You'll find out how good they are this coming weekend. Men's and women's Final Four right here on the VTRN Sports app. Your home for the best play-by-play. But if you're Liberty, he'd have value. But if you're talking about prioritizing players, your glue guys are Porter, Matheny, and Cleveland. And I get it. Porter and Matheny, below 6 feet tall, limited market, certainly at the power level. But other teams might see them as viable role players and could outbid you for it. They're glue guys. They've helped instill the culture. I get that. Zach Cleveland is the type of guy, despite his atrocious free throw shooting this past year, is very good in a lot of other areas. And again, he does more. He's kind of Zach Cleveland, or Zach Cleveland is kind of Owen Aquino, but consistently across the board, brought more to the table, is a glue piece. And so if you're Liberty, hey, you got to pick or choose one or the other. Aquino may see more minutes and see a little bit more
Dollar bills, y'all.
somewhere else. And you'd love to have him if you're Liberty, but you're talking about prioritization, and that's the reality of this day and age in the transfer portal. Also, the other element is, if Talon Peter somehow gets the extra of eligibility, if you're Liberty, he vaults to the priority line list of wanting to keep him around potentially for another year, because one of those years before he got to Liberty, JUCO type years, do not count now against your eligibility with the whole Diego Pavia ruling. Former New Mexico State quarterback. Sorry to bring up painful memories, Philip, since you saw him 3 times on the sideline, and he's at Vanderbilt and gets an extra year. Sorry to Virginia Tech fans. He'll be in Blacksburg this coming week 2 of the college football season, but he's got the extra year because of that. So if you're Liberty, you may be thinking about Talon Peter having that opportunity. And again, it's resource allocation. And to me, it speaks to the fact that for Liberty, you'd love to keep Owen Aquino around. he is probably going to have a bigger bag or opportunity elsewhere. But if you're the Flames, you have to prioritize your resources, getting the core back, and then who else you want to add. The key would be, first of all, if you can add the extra year of Peter, I think that's at the top of your priority list. And if you can't, you can also add other players that can fit the mold. And it goes back to kind of, I hate to proposition like this, but we're in the business of where college athletics is right now. It's the business model, which is trust your staff to upgrade the talent. This roster is still, granted, we're going to presume, I know what happens when you assume here, but we're going to do it anyway, that Isaiah Enan and Josh Smith can come back healthy for Liberty. They're in a better spot just with that, plus Porter, Cleveland, and Matheny, than they were last year. If you get Peter, phenomenal bonus. And the coaching staff, if one thing they've shown is they've been able to identify the type of players that are either Power 5 players, Big East, ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12 players, that are bounce-back type players. For whatever reason, didn't work out there, but believing they can coach them up. And in the case of Aquino, who came from East Florida State College, Talon Peter from Arkansas Tech or whatever the school is out there in the middle of Arkansas. It was not Central Arkansas where Scottie Pippen once went. But one of those, that they can identify those diamonds in the rough, and then they can coach them and develop them, because you got success stories now if you're Liberty, which means you have that sales pitch to other people. If you're Liberty, yes, it's kind of the lot, as Richie McKay often says, it's our lot in college basketball. But if I'm a Flames fan, I hate losing Owen Aquino, but it's not the earth-shattering, alarm-raising departure of, oh my goodness, the coaching staff doesn't know what they're doing, or this program is not committed to basketball. It's the reality of limitations on resources, prioritizing your assets, and knowing the right direction to go with whatever you have. Speaking of the right direction for saving is very easy at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Because if you want to go somewhere, maybe you want to go there a little bit faster in the best apparel possible for your run or walk. Fleet Feet Roanoke can help with that. Those gift cards are up right now at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Normally $50 value. For you, almost, not quite, but almost 50% off the list price at InsaneRadioDeals.com. And so many other great specials right now at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Speaking of players transferring and the transfer portal, more on that right now in...
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
Isaac Maneely off to Louisville, leaving the Virginia Cavaliers. Of all the players, 9 of them, by the way, pod that music down, Philip. Pod the music down just a smidge. Nope, other one. Yeah, there you go. So I don't have to scream. If you're Virginia, you would have loved to have kept McNeely over anyone else on the roster. He's a top 20 transfer in college basketball. And the fact that he was recruited by Louisville, Tennessee was in the mix in them, and others, these are NCAA tournament caliber programs. They're also programs that are a little more established with their coaches. I get it, we're only in year 2 of the Pat Kelsey era at Louisville, but they've had a year now with the staff to identify the players they want to keep and retain, and therefore add the supplemental pieces. And Isaac McNeely, one of the better three-point shooters in college basketball, is still a supplemental piece. He's the type of guy that can put you over the top when you have a core in place. Newsflash, 9 players of Virginia's 11 entered the transfer portal this year. Elijah Gertrude and Elijah Saunders are the only 2 that have not. Everybody else has. When you're trying to build a core, which is what Ryan Odom is trying to do, key players to go over the top would be great. And Virginia, they have the financial resources ready. But you got to think differently if you're Virginia, and that's just getting the right roster in place. I know they change year over year. Yes, in reality, at best, they're 2-year rosters in college basketball because of the way these guys can move around quickly, and you're taking some transfer ups, which means they've had a year or 2 at a lower level where they then come to you and you keep them after for a couple of years. It's more the JUCO model. But Virginia, they're building from scratch essentially with their roster. McNeely, you'd love to have. He has value. I'll be curious the reception he gets at JPJ, but I don't begrudge him at all for this particular stance just because where he is right now as a player, he can help a team take that next step to being a second weekend team in the tournament like Louisville or deep second weekend team, Elite 8 Final Four caliber. Virginia, I think Ryan Odom can get him back to the NCAA tournament because the ACC is bad and he's a good coach. But when you have to totally retool your roster, I don't think they're quite there in Charlottesville to that particular level. Speaking of local sports, yesterday at Tech Softball Park, to the surprise of nobody, another Virginia Tech victory over Liberty. Look, the Lady Hokies are really good when it comes to softball right now. They had a sweep against Stanford over the weekend, and David Cunningham of TexasSideline.com documented that Monday in covering the Commonwealth. But a 6-0 shutout victory against Liberty, where the Flames get 3 hits. They faced Emma Lemley twice, the former JF Cavalier. She surrendered 3 total hits because she threw the no-hitter at Liberty earlier this year. Twice facing the number 20 Liberty Flames and allowing 3 hits, that's fantastic. For Liberty, this is look, I think we can safely say they're not on the level of a Virginia Tech, but the Lady Hokies are a top 10-ish team, number 11 right now in the polls. Liberty, they're number 20. But if you're kind of going in groupings, I don't think Virginia Tech's top 5. That's kind of their own class in softball. But Virginia Tech is a flirt with the College World Series roster. The Liberty Flames are a flirt with the right matchups, and maybe you can get your way to a super regional type roster. And then they'd probably need a break to get to the College World Series. Virginia Tech, I think they have the right pieces in place, particularly in the circle with Emma Lemley. It's no shade on Liberty right now because of a good program. Dot Richardson has challenged them correctly. This has worked out very well year over year as a team that they are the favorites in Conference USA. They've swept their first 2 series in CUSA softball. But if you're comparing Liberty to Virginia Tech, the games don't lie right now. Lady Hokies have dominated the Lady Flames this year in their 2 matchups and only surrendered 3 hits. And Emma Lemley threw a no-hitter back on February 26th right here in the LBG. I think the results at this point speak for themselves. Liberty, a very good softball program, but not quite on the level of Virginia Tech this season.
Number 3.
Alex Ovechkin. He's going to do it now. The lone goal for the Capitals in that 5-1 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. Big picture, and we'll start getting into hockey more next week in the Fast Lane. Vic Morin of the NHL Wraparound podcast, and then his co-host, former Rangers general manager Neil Smith, who architected the 94 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers. We're going to catch up with both of them at different junctures during the playoff run. But Carolina, they're good. Washington, they're also good, but they're off a back-to-back from the night before. And if you think back-to-backs are challenging in the NBA, try doing it in hockey where the objective is literally to run into each other. When you're off a back-to-back, particularly road back-to-backs like the Capitals, I don't ding them a ton for the loss, but Alex Ovechkin at this point, he's 3 away from breaking, 2 away from tying the Wayne Gretzky record. Barring anything catastrophic, it would be very surprising if he does not end up breaking that particular mark.
Number 2.
In one of the dumber moves that you could possibly find, can someone please explain this? Why are the ACC officials determining, and why did they, that the women's basketball tournament in 2026 needs to move from Greensboro to Atlanta? Look, you will find fewer in sports talk radio, particularly men, champions of women's sports. But let's keep it real here. Greensboro was the ideal centralized location, and you can make an argument for Charlotte. Charlotte's within driving distance of most ACC schools, and it's a direct flight from all the others, including the Bay Area and Dallas, Texas. I've spent, sadly, too much time in the Charlotte airport. I can attest they even fly direct to Tallahassee. They fly direct to Miami. They fly direct to Syracuse, New York, to Pittsburgh, to Louisville, puddle jumpers, or big planes. And you might have a long layover, but you can get there. Greensboro, not far from there. Why are we going to Atlanta for this when there are fewer fan bases that can access this? Again, champion of women's sports that I am. But having seen the drapes that have come down in prior years because they don't fill up the second level of the Greensboro Coliseum, now we're moving to Atlanta, which is a bigger venue and fewer fans are likely to access it. What are we thinking here? I mean, to quote the Three Stooges,
Are you that dumb?
the people who made the decision clearly are.
Number 1.
Meanwhile, are we getting intellectual fighting in the ACC? 2 members of the Cal NIL Collective have announced that they will cease making contributions to Cal football until Ron Rivera is given full power over football program decision-making, including head coach Justin Wilcox. How ironic is this, by the way? In the SEC, which is known for, sorry to you, Philip, because your former coach is in the SEC, but how do we say this? The SEC is known to have extremely forcible personalities who think very highly of their skill sets as coaches. Is the ACC just doing this with general managers? And again, with all due respect to our guy Michael Lombardi of UNC football, we're not putting him in this category, but we are wondering about this with Stanford and Cal, where you have the Cal boosters who believe Ron Rivera needs to have, as Melissa McCarthy would remind us,
lots of power,
and even more so than head coach Justin Wilcox. Meanwhile, Andrew Luck decided to get rid of Troy Taylor. I think there were justifiable reasons for that, but you've got those two warring factions, if you will. Kind of amusing in reality that this is the ACC. The SEC, it's about big ego coaches, and the ACC, it's about big ego management and leadership because it's the intellectually superior conference. Meanwhile, when we return in the fast lane, intellectual superiority is always on display in the Redneck Riviera, and Mike Neff of FrontStretch.com will share some of that with us as we talk plenty of NASCAR, including the sweep of Crown Jewel tracks. That when we return here in the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
When you're voted one of the best plumbers according to Lynchburg Living magazine, you want to hire the best. Sullivan Plumbing wants the best plumbers to join our award-winning team. Do you have a clean driving record? Do you have at least 4 years plumbing experience? Then you're a 5-star recruit, and Sullivan Plumbing would love to meet with you. Take the first step. Call Sullivan Plumbing in downtown Lynchburg or email sullivanplumbing@gmail.com.
Do you know what a cold climate heat pump is? They're a new generation of heat pumps from Tara Lee Mosley that provide substantially more heat than traditional heat pumps, even when it's 5 degrees outside. This means your electrical auxiliary heat runs less, saving you big time on your electric bill. And with the recent spikes in electric utility rates, that's crucial. Plus, these new heat pumps qualify you for a $2,000 federal tax credit. Contact Tara Lee Mosley for more info on the new cold climate heat pumps.
When shopping for auto insurance, it's worth paying a little bit more for strong coverage against uninsured drivers. That way, if you're on the wrong end of an accident, you and your family are protected from drivers with little to no insurance. Hi, I'm Randy Trost with Trost Law. Just a friendly reminder that saying yes to a strong policy with higher uninsured motorist coverage limits is a small investment that you can make to protect you and your family against a big headache. If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, call us at 777-HURT or visit trostlaw.com.
Welcome to the Villas at Oakwood. Our stunning community offers spacious, modern, wheelchair-accessible villas with top-of-the-line amenities. Enjoy views from the Peaks of Otter from your patio home. Connect with neighbors at our exclusive clubhouse. Discover your dream home today. Experience the maintenance-free lifestyle that you deserve. Visit us behind the Bedford Memorial Hospital, online at thevillasatoakwood.com, or just contact Robin Lee Sage at 434-238-4477.
Join the Lynchburg Hillcats at Bank of the James Stadium this summer for any of your favorite nightly promotions. New this year are Senior Sluggers Tuesdays, where members of the Silver Sluggers Club get in free, and College Pride Night, where those wearing college apparel receive a discounted ticket on Wednesdays. As always, we'll have Thirsty Thursdays and giveaways and fireworks on the weekend, and free admission for Kids Club members on Sunday. Get your tickets today at lynchburg-hillcats.com.
Are you ready to move to the next chapter of your life? That means you're ready for us. Hi, I'm Moyanne Harding, the region's only total turnkey realtor and interior designer. We'll come to you and help you decide what you're ready to let go of and bring you top dollar for those unwanted items. Most importantly, we'll sell your most valuable investment, your home. With decades of experience, just hand your keys to us and let the stress melt away. Call me today and book your consultation, www.moyanne.com.
Moyanne Harding, brokered by Keller Williams.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us. Build with experience. Build with quality. Build with Right Choice.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Crown Crown Jewels. When people think of it in NASCAR, they often think of the races themselves, but the reality is Crown Jewels actually also consist of the race venues in NASCAR. And I'd say that's a little bit different. When I think of the Crown Jewel races, to me, the Daytona 500 is up there. I guess I'll put the Brickyard 400. To me, it's begrudgingly because they tried the Roval thing. Initially, I got it. I know Mike Neff of FrenchStretch.com does not necessarily agree with that particular sentiment because, he's more of a purist when it comes to all motorsports, but I can respect that. And then when I think of the other races, the Bristol Night Race was one and the Southern 500 was the other, even though for a while they moved the only Darlington race was Mother's Day weekend, and then NASCAR wisened up and went back there both this coming weekend and Mother's Day and Labor Day weekend, which is the traditional Southern 500 date. But when I think of venues that are Crown Jewels in NASCAR, I think much more along the lines of the venues that are by and large on the sweep of NASCAR. Daytona is obviously on the list. I'll put Charlotte and Talladega there as well. A lot of them are more in the Southeast because let's keep it real here in the fast lane. That's really where the sport was founded. So, you look at Martinsville last weekend. I know the racing's not ideal under this current car at Martinsville. I thought it was better, but not great last Sunday at Martinsville for the Cup race. But you got done with that. You've got Darlington this weekend, a little early, but throwback weekend. The Cup's off next weekend because that's Easter weekend, or in a couple of weekends, excuse me. But Rockingham will be taking place instead. So that's the cool thing for NASCAR is they've got Rockingham on the horizon as well. Granted, it's only Xfinity and Truck Series, but that still is a crown jewel venue. And of course, I'd put North Wilkesboro in that, even though maybe that's a stretch because they've been dormant for about 2 decades. Now, somebody who can be the judge on this, he is a NASCAR historian and has an article up a couple of weeks ago or a couple of days ago at frontstretch.com. Mike Neff with us once again here in the Fast Lane. Neff, great to be speaking with you. You touched on some of the crown jewel races in which NASCAR has, and also the crown jewel venues, which are not necessarily the same thing. You're the historian here. Where did I err? Where am I pretty right on when it comes to assessing crown jewel venues when it comes to NASCAR?
Well, thank you for having me on first of all, Ed. I always love joining you, and I don't know if I'm necessarily a historian or I'm just old. I think the fact that I've just been around this sport for 30-some, 40-some years is why I might be considered a historian. But you're pretty well on. I don't know that I put Talladega in. I know it's the biggest and the fastest, but it's just a Daytona on steroids. I just don't feel like it's that unique. I agree with Martinsville, and I'm with you on North Wilkesboro. Even though it's been dormant for a bit, it's back, and it is still one of the 2 tracks that was on the original 1949 schedule for the first ever season of NASCAR. So that's why I like it. I'm with you on Darlington. It was the first super speedway. Daytona, obviously, for multiple reasons, it was the home, and it was the first true house of speed. Bristol I like because of just the short track jet fighters in a gymnasium aspect of it. You didn't get a lot of short tracks like that had that kind of high banking on them. Winchester in Indiana comes to mind, but it was never on the Cup Series. So Rockingham I'm torn on, and I truly hope that this Easter weekend it comes up, we're going to see a packed house, because I argue this all the time. Rockingham had every chance in the world to get back to the Cup schedule years ago when Andy Hillenberg was running it, and people don't support it. You've got over 7 million people within a 2-hour drive of that venue, and they couldn't sell 30,000 seats for the second truck race that was there. And I blame the fans for it. They have the ability to get that track back on the Cup schedule, just like Kentucky, and it's up to the fans to support it. But the rest of them, I'm with you. Charlotte, again, just because that's kind of the home of SMI, and it was the home of the first, big track under lights, and it's got the 600 to it, which has always been a crown jewel event. So I put Charlotte in there too. But yeah, Darlington, Charlotte, Daytona, Bristol, Indianapolis. And again, I'm an Indy guy. I'm an Indy guy. But they kind of put that in there as de facto, like you said. It's Granted, it's got 30 years of history to it now, but it's an open wheel track. And I love that it's on the schedule, and I support it wholeheartedly because I think it's the greatest track in the world. But I don't know that it qualifies as a crown jewel stock car track.
I mean, to me, it's not just because it doesn't have the stock. It's a crown jewel motorsports track, but that is different because that encompasses all types of disciplines. Whereas you mentioned, and by the way, I got to get my usher on for a moment here in the fast lane. It is Easter weekend in 2 weekends when NASCAR goes to Rockingham. Next weekend, NASCAR will be at Bristol. This weekend, they're at Darlington. But it's part of this sweep of tracks that have a lot of historical relevance in NASCAR before they branch out, particularly over the summer stretch. As a NASCAR, we'll call you historian. I'd like to say that I fit that category as well. How much do you just embrace the fact that we're getting to see these tracks? And I say hopefully because, you want to see it. But like you mentioned, you want to see Rockingham embraced, even with it being Easter and even being the Xfinity and Truck Series. The fact that, if you can have good showings, we've seen that you might have more of a place on the schedule now.
Absolutely. Obviously this is your first year back in whatever it's been, 12, 14 years since we had the truck race there. And the first time around when it was brought back the last time, we were packed out for an ARCA race, packed out for the first truck race. But the support wasn't there when they came around for the second one. So if they can show up, I mean, look at Kentucky. I give if the most angry fans in the entire sport should be Kentucky fans, because they went for years only getting an Xfinity race, and they packed that place out every year. And then they finally get cup races, and they pack it out every year, and out of the blue, they rip the date away from them for no reason whatsoever. And the Kentucky NASCAR fans have been screwed over more than any other fan base in the sport. And that's where Rockingham's got a shot, but it's up to them to support it.
Mike Neff, MNeff Short Track, with us here in the fast lane. Mike, your colleague at frontstretch.com, James Krause, has an interesting piece up on how, from July 22nd, 2006, which was, the last date before this current stretch, the NASCAR held an Xfinity race at Martinsville. By the way, I was back there sweating my you-know-what off at Martinsville back on July 22nd, 2006, sitting in the grandstands for that race, which produced a lot of carnage. This past weekend's race did as well, and we took our 2 exchange students, one from Spain and one from Germany, and they found it entertaining but unprofessional is what their basic assessment was, given all the carnage. So penalties have come about from that. Sammy Smith losing 50 points in that. That's driver points going forward. A lot of people have said when that happens, you should black flag them on the spot as well. Am I off base in saying those are 2 good steps, but maybe a third one is make them start the next race? I know this is a big elaborate idea, and I often poo-poo on these. But is another good idea, make these drivers that commit this, not only black flag them during the race and give them a points penalty, but make them start the next race 1 or 2 laps down, meaning it's not impossible to dig out of a hole, but they're behind the 8 ball from the get-go, and if they want to have a chance of winning or a good finish, they're going to basically have to be perfect.
And that's a way. I like the points penalty idea, although I don't like it to be as big as it is. I think that you should be penalized back to a last place finish. I don't get why you lose more than a race is worth of points. But I thought the points penalty was good. We discussed this on the Front Stretch podcast this week. In the olden days, again, me being an old guy, when you did something like that, it was on the radio within a lap. We need the crew chief and the driver of whatever car number to the trailer after the race. And you went in there. Well, first of all, you had to go stand outside for 10 or 15 minutes before you got called into the trailer. And then you had to sit down and not say a word and be informed by Mike Helton exactly how you're supposed to race in our sport, and realize that if you don't want to race that way in our sport, you can go home and the sport will carry on. And that's where you don't hear any more about drivers getting called to the hauler like they used to. And you don't have the senior level drivers in Xfinity, and you do still some in trucks, but especially in Xfinity, Justin Allgaier, yes, but most everybody else in there has not been in there more than a handful of years at tops. And you need you need somebody that can beat your rear end, that is an experienced driver to sit you down and explain to you how to drive properly. And right now, there's no repercussions. Yeah, we got some points this weekend. That's great. But he's the only one. There were probably a dozen guys in that race that should have had points penalties. And the only one you hear about is Sammy. And that's where there's not enough repercussions for driving like you're in a Legends car race where you're at the second highest level of stock car racing in the country.
Mike Neff with us here in the Fast Lane, discussing all types of things when it comes to NASCAR and on-track ideas. Shifting away from the racing and the crown jewels, although maybe not totally. In fact, you could argue both these tracks are crown jewels. But the news came out today that Prime Video, which has got NASCAR rights going forward, and of course, the real documentary I can't wait to see is the Memorial Day weekend one on Dale Earnhardt Sr., because Jr. has given an endorsement on it. So I know what I'll be doing after I run the Memorial Day 10K run for type 1 diabetes experience. But after that, I'll be watching the Dale Earnhardt Sr. documentary. They're doing another one on this coming Memorial Day weekend with Kyle Larson trying to pull off the double, which he did not pull off last year. How big is this for NASCAR and the relationship, not just with Prime, but leveraging that for additional publicity?
I think it's a brilliant idea. I mean, you're leveraging multiple angles on this deal. You've got the history and the legacy of arguably the most famous race car driver in stock car racing. And I'm curious myself to see how this comes out. And I hope we get a lot of behind the scenes stories of how things happen. But then you also get the double. So you're pulling Indianapolis into this thing, and you've got the history of Indy and the history of the double, because we've had a handful of guys try to pull it off. Tony Stewart's the only one that's really had serious success in both races on a given weekend. So I love that they're highlighting it. I loved how much attention Larson got it, because let's face it, Larson is probably the most popular driver across disciplines in racing right now. And the fact that he's the one that's doing this is really going to shine a light on it, provided the weather cooperates and he actually gets to do both of them.
Neff, appreciate your time today in the Fast Lane. We'll wrap it up on this one. NASCAR, I was very intrigued when they said this. This is an even bigger picture one on NASCAR. But NASCAR owners, Jim France and Lisa France Kennedy, have announced that they have promoted Steve Phelps to be the NASCAR commissioner, and have also elevated Steve O'Donnell to be the successor as the COO of NASCAR. Is this really similar to how NFL, NBA, and other stick and ball sport owners will have their commissioner, which is code for we pay you handsomely to take the proverbial shots that we don't want to take?
Maybe. I'm curious to see how this authority plays out. And as you just heard me say, there needs to be somebody in the trailer disciplining guys and just talking to guys about how the sport should be participated in and how you handle situations. And as a side note, I've mentioned this numerous times before, my personal belief when Sammy and Taylor got into it at the end of the deal, stop them on pit lane. Everybody else stays away. Let them settle it. If they want to have an argument, have an argument. If you want to have a fight, have a fight. If you do have a fight, you go until somebody hits the ground and then you break it up like a hockey fight. Anyone else that jumps in is suspended for a year. Because the biggest problem with NASCAR fights is you get all these crew guys jumping in and mucking up the whole thing. Let the drivers settle it. The problem is among the drivers, so let them settle it. But I truly hope that Phelps will be in a position, and I hope they give him the autonomy to do it, where he can make a call that whatever the penalty is for a certain action, the series backs it up and that it is fully enforced and has the teeth that it needs to try to rein in where this sport's going. Because if it doesn't, within 5 years, the chaos that was the Xfinity race will be in the Cup Series full time.
It will. It's not far away. And so that's where it goes in the future. We go to MNEF Short Track on Twitter and frontstretch.com for Neff's analysis. He's also with Trey, God bless you, in the Front Stretch Happy Hour podcast. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate it, Neff, and it's always good to catch up.
Always an honor, brother. Look forward to doing it again.
We look forward to it as well. Mike Neff with us here in the Fast Lane. When we return, we'll change gears, pun intended, and talk March Madness Final Four with Clark Kellogg of CBS Sports. That when we return. This is the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker open VTRN Sports.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Volkswagen. Get ready to fall head over heels for the perfect VW SUV. One size doesn't fit all, though, and that's why Volkswagen has an SUV for everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the tech-packed Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terryvw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
Guests are great, except unwanted guests. At Specialty Exterminating, we know the difference. Hi, I'm Sabrina Kennan with Specialty Exterminating. We help you keep unwanted pests out of your home. Now we can keep those reptiles away. Our new reptile repellent is the perfect add-on for your pest prevention service. It's pet and people safe, so it's perfect for any homeowner, especially pool owners and homes in wooded and rural areas. Call us so we can repel the reptiles. Specialty Exterminating, your pest prevention partner since 1979.
Allstate agent Donovan Howell is now serving Lynchburg. He lives and works here just like you. And with all kinds of local insurance advice, Donovan is someone you can count on to help you protect all that's good in your life. Donovan makes it easy to save on the quality protection you need, and I'll even help you do the switching and the paperwork for you.
Call or come by the Donovan Howell Allstate office in Windhurst today.
When the thrill of playing ball turns into the agony of a broken windshield or car window, contact Apple Auto Glass. Your local auto glass repair shop on Allegheny Avenue in Lynchburg, Apple Auto Glass provide a professional assessment with the honesty from your neighbors, so you can get back to sharing the great moments this season.
When you're voted one of the best plumbers according to Lynchburg Living magazine, you want to hire the best. Sullivan Plumbing wants the best plumbers to join our award-winning team. Do you have a clean driving record? Do you have at least 4 years plumbing experience? Then you're a 5-star recruit, and Sullivan Plumbing would love to meet with you. Take the first step. Call Sullivan Plumbing in downtown Lynchburg or email sullivanplumbing@gmail.com.
Hi, I'm Matt with Fleet Feet Roanoke. I've enjoyed working with Ed Lane and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. But when they sold their Roanoke station, I was skeptical the partnership could still provide value. Months later, I'm thankful that Ed took the time to meet with me, discuss the right solutions, and a plan to invite his audience to Fleet Feet Roanoke. Now we're able to build a connection with that audience thanks to Ed's creativity. Stop by and see us at Fleet Feet Roanoke to learn more. We'd love to get to know you.
Email info@virginiatalkradioNetwork.com to start growing your business.
Are you ready to move to the next chapter of your life? That means you're ready for us. Hi, I'm Moyann Harding, the region's only total turnkey realtor and interior designer. We'll come to you and help you decide what you're ready to let go of and bring you top dollar for those unwanted items. Most importantly, we'll sell your most valuable investment, your home. With decades of experience, just hand your keys to us and let the stress melt away. Call me today and book your consultation, www.moyann.com.
Moyann Harding, brokered by Keller Williams.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
The new norm. That's one of those great phrases that many people would rather forget because it happened to be about 10 years ago. Not 10 years ago, about 5 years ago when we were going through the COVID pandemic where people discussed, although there are certain things that came out of that. Work from home has been a great thing that people have learned, in the balance, I would like to say, between that, the ability to do video casting like we do, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, and VTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube, among the many other things that have been born out of those challenging times. The new norm in college basketball. Are we there with 4 number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament once again, and not a lot of mid-majors making it to the second weekend or even the second week of the NCAA tournament? Those are questions that have somewhat been answered this year, because you've listened to it on the VTR and Sports app, your home for the best play-by-play, all of March Madness, including the men's and women's Final Fours this weekend. But we also get an expert insight right now with Clark Kellogg of CBS Sports, who's with us in the Fast Lane. Clark, great to be speaking with you. We look forward to this every year, and we are excited to see you on TV as well this coming weekend. Are we at the new norm where we maybe not always going to have all number one seeds like we have, but generally speaking, higher seeds in college basketball making these deep runs?
Yeah, I don't want to make a proclamation based on something that's only happened twice since 1979. I mean, we had 4 number one seeds back in 2008, ironically, in San Antonio. But to make a broad brush statement that this is the new norm, I think would be a bit of a reach. Let's see how it plays out. I will say this, the tournament always delivers. It always gives us something that we remember and enjoy. And no matter where you are on the continuum as it relates to desiring more Cinderellas and mid-majors versus the heavyweights that we have representing this year's Final Four, there's something for everybody. And the action on the court has been compelling and exciting. And I think the same thing happens in these next and last 3 games of 2025. So I'm of the mindset, Ed, we embrace each year for what it gives us. The trends will speak for themselves over time.
Clark Kellogg, CBS. That's where you can keep up with Clark on Twitter and Instagram. And, of course, the NCAA tournament broadcast this coming weekend on CBS, as he'll be part of that coverage, as Clark Kellogg is gracious enough to give us some time today here in the Fast Lane of those matchups and the delivery on the entertainment value. Which one are you more convinced? Obviously, they could both be thrillers, and we hope and pray that they are from a sports perspective, of course. But which one is it? Auburn and Florida because of the familiarity and they played in the SEC already? Or is it Duke and Houston because stylistically it could get defensive and it leads to a close game?
Well, you've kind of answered your own question there, Ed. I think, the stylistic contrast clearly exists between Houston and Duke. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the mud fest that some folks are predicting. Both teams are elite defensively, hang their hat at that end of the floor, but both are capable of scoring the ball. So I think Duke and Florida are the 2 most complete and most explosive teams of the 4 remaining. Auburn obviously has an issue with Johni Broome's elbow. How effective can he be? Will he be? That was an ugly injury he sustained. And we'll see what his level of effectiveness is Saturday night. But clearly, I picked on Selection Sunday Florida and Duke to play for the national championship, with Florida getting my vote to win it. I'm not going to change that. I think both matchups have the potential to be quite compelling and entertaining. But one of the reasons we love sports is that it's always unpredictable. The drama, the real life, real time, unpredictable drama that exists in sports is something very unique. So we'll see. But I think we're going to have 2 high quality games. At least that's my hope.
When we get a Cinderella in the Final Four, sometimes it's like when Butler was there and they rimmed out a chance to beat Duke for the national championship that first go round. Other times it's like VCU and George Mason, great stories they were. It's not all that exciting. And if they had have won, it would have been a surprise. Is there a surprise outcome that you could foresee, Clark, for any of these matchups in the Final Four or the championship?
No, I don't really think anything would surprise you. All of these teams, these are the 4 best teams in the country. I don't think there's anybody that would debate or argue that. Clearly, they've stood out, and it was rewarded with number 1 seeds for all 4 of these teams. So when you get to that point, then clearly you're capable of winning it all. They've gotten here a little differently. Houston's been challenged in a couple of its games. Duke has yet to really face any significant game pressure in its 4 wins. Florida has been challenged similarly to Houston in a couple of its games. Auburn has been pretty comfortable, got pushed in one of its games for a bit by Michigan, but otherwise, and actually I think the first game too for just a little bit got pushed, but otherwise they've been pretty comfortable. So we'll see how that plays out. But all four of these teams, either any one of them would be worthy, deserving champions. And to get to Monday night and to be on that ladder cutting down the net, you're going to have earned it against the three other best teams in the field.
The Duke Blue Devils are the one that create not only the biggest national headline being the brand that they are, but of course in our backyard as well. They have had a great run to this point. How underrated, everyone's talked about Cooper Flagg, justifiably so, but how underrated is the job that John Shire has done taking over for Coach K when he's kind of debunking that adage of you don't want to be the one who follows the legend?
You know, it's interesting. It's hard to have every topic or every worthy storyline or every player get top billing on the marquee. Somebody has to be second or not given as much attention or scrutiny. It's just the nature of it's just human nature. We can't cover everything at the same level of importance or scrutiny. That being said, you could have a full expose on the remarkable job that John has done in his 3 years as a head coach. I mean, you could have a full-length feature on that. You could have the same on Con Knipple, who in many cases, if not for Cooper Flagg being his teammate, would be one of the most talked about freshmen in the country. So I think you just have to look at it realistically and objectively. There's a lot to chew on when you get to this point. Countless storylines that are worthy of attention. And one of the great things about the tournament to me is that you get a chance to get behind the curtain a little bit on some of these stories that maybe didn't get as much attention as they deserved, or it's just not during the course of the regular season that it becomes newsworthy. So that's part of the specialness of this tournament too. And it's not just for those teams getting to the Final Four. It's for teams that have made the tournament for the first time in their program's history, getting a win for the first time in their program's history. McNeese State did that. Countless other storylines that emerge because this special 3-week run to a championship lends itself to that. And that's part of the secret sauce that makes it, so special.
Clark, we'll wrap it up on this. We know the Duke Blue Devils right now are the class of the ACC. What about the other additions that have been made, whether it's, roster retention additions at places like Louisville, Clemson already, they're getting active early, and even the coaching changes, particularly in our own backyard at a place like Virginia with Ryan Odom and Mike Young seemingly having more resources. Have the Duke Blue Devils' success this year had an effect on the rest of the ACC of wanting to elevate their game and now knowing what they need to do to contend regularly with this program?
Well, I think that's commonplace every year. When you see the coaching carousel go into action, you see teams in a league that typically has multiple representation in the tournament, be a little below that this year in the ACC. It causes everybody to say, hey, Duke is the standard. What are we going to do to try to close the gap? So coaching changes are part of that, how you go about roster retention and development. I think it's pretty much the same each year. Duke obviously has had a phenomenal year and has maybe amplified the need for the rest of the league to step its game up.
Clark Kellogg hanging out with us today in the Fast Lane. You'll see him on CBS this coming weekend. He's at Clark Kellogg CBS on Twitter and Instagram. Clark, great to chat as always. We really enjoy doing this every year. Enjoy the basketball action, and thank you for making some time for us in the middle of your busy schedule.
My pleasure. Always good to visit with you. Enjoy the weekend. 3 great games will culminate with a worthy champion on Monday night.
We look forward to it as well. Clark Kellogg with us here to wrap up the Fast Lane, and great insight from him, and love catching up with him every single year. And, we've touched on it, but I think Duke winning the ACC, making the Final Four and elevating themselves motivates everybody else to get to the point where they go, oh, we've got to really upgrade. And you're starting to see that take its shape with roster retention in some spots, additions of players in others, and of course, overhauls in places like UVA. More on that Monday in the Fast Lane and covering the Commonwealth No Show tomorrow. Tech Baseball, Women's Final Four, and a busy weekend. Keep it locked to the VTRN Sports app. Thanks for listening to the Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227 BG Timberlake.